Welcome to Reddit Aliens. Serious, what paranormal experience have you had? Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Towers. I used to sleep in a room at the top of a staircase where the only entry to the hall with the staircase was a heavy and very creaky door. Occasionally, I'd hear footsteps going up the stairs, including the unique sound every step gives, including top step, but nobody came up. This happened periodically, and it scared me every time. One time, I ran to the stairs as soon as the stepping started and watched the entire empty staircase as the sound went on. I could even feel the vibrations in the steps. I started shrieking in hysteria as my tiny mind couldn't handle what I saw. I liked having my cat sleep on my bed with me because it was less scary with him there. One night, it suddenly perked up and started hissing at the stairs as I lay there. Right after that, the sound started. This time, it sounded like it started from the top and made its way down. The cat freaked out, jumped off the bed onto the floor. Never felt safe again after that, even with my cat there. This was one of many weird experiences in that house, but it's the only one that can't be attributed to any natural phenomenon. It can't even have just been in my head because my cat freaked out too. I've had two very notable experiences, one that was very pleasant and one that was not. I'll tell the pleasant one now because it's shorter, but can tell the scary one if anyone wants to hear it. So, I was around 10 or so, I would say, and I had just gotten done talking with my mom about her dad, my grandpa. He had passed away when I was 2 by falling and getting a brain bleed. So we were talking about him, and I just happened to say, I really wish I could have gotten to know him. And then I walked away through our living room where his old office chair was in. And as I passed it, I kind of glanced at it and noticed something, but kept walking, and then I realized what it was and did a double take, but it was gone. It was my grandpa sitting in his chair, and he smiled at me. I sprinted back into the kitchen to tell my mom, and she kind of pushed it away. But then I described what he was wearing: khaki pants, brown shoes, a plaid button-up, and suspenders, and my mom froze, and she told me that's what he wore all the time when he was alive. It was a very odd thing, but very comforting, and as real as anything else I've ever seen. Okay, I will type it up and post it here later. I work until 6, so I'll post it when I get off. Thanks for everyone's interest. When I was in 5th grade, I was sitting in my living room with a neighbor kid playing video games. We both saw a black shadow in the shape of a person walk down the hallway that led out of the living room. It was so real looking, we thought someone had broken into the house. We screamed and ran down the street to her house. I waited until my mom got home and went to tell her what happened. I said someone had broken in, but she said, "No, it's okay. It's Mr. Brown." I of course was like, what? Who's that? My mom suffered a massive stroke when she was 30 years old and had to be resuscitated several times, and had a very vivid near-death experience where her grandparents told her it wasn't her time and she needed to go back. She said ever since, someone was around her and she called it Mr. Brown. She said she would be folding clothes, leave the room and come back and they were all folded. Or that she would be trying to find something and it would show up where it obviously wasn't before, like it had been set out for her. I don't know if I believe all of her stories, but I definitely saw something. It was broad daylight. My friend saw too. It really happened. Here's a quick parenting tip. If you know of and see a ghost in your house, let your kids know. Might help. There was a graveyard that had a gravestone that would look like it would glow at a certain angle. This was a popular local thing. It would be common to show up at the graveyard at night and there'd be a bunch of people there to see it. One night, myself and another friend were there. Some sketchy guy, looked homeless, said that the ghost of the girl who was buried at the glowing gravestone had been seen recently. My friend and I both looked at each other like whatever, but we stayed because we had nothing better to do. About 10 minutes, a family shows up. Husband, wife, 3 kids, all under the age of 10ish. They're standing next to us. We're all quiet, waiting for something to happen. We're standing about 20 feet away from the gravestone, and there are no lights around, so it's dark. I then think I see a small shadow, figure, blacker than the darkness around us, walking around the gravestone. I don't say a word to anyone. It then looks like it stopped and knelt down beside the gravestone. As soon as this happened, the creepy homeless guy leans over to me and very quietly says, "Do you see it kneeling down?" At this point, I freak out. Not more than 30 seconds later, the mother of the family skips over to the gravestone and starts to skip around it. We're all in shock. Her kids are bawling their eyes out because they're totally creeped out. Husband keeps calling her name. She just continues to skip around. She stops, walks over back to where her family is standing like nothing ever happened. She finally sort of snaps out of it, and her husband asks what the heck that was all about, and she claims she had no recollection of what happened. At this time, myself and my friend are completely freaked out and decided it's time to get the hell out of there. I definitely saw a shadow. I don't know what to think about that mother skipping around. I wouldn't think she would freak her kids out to the point of crying just to prank a few people. My father-in-law's house is haunted. I found this out one day when I was alone with my husband in the house. The whole family was out of town. We were sitting on the 3rd floor, and we heard a little girl coming up the stairs. We assumed it was his stepsister's kid, and that everyone had come home. Well, she never came into the room, which was weird because her favorite pastime was annoying us. Husband said, "Wouldn't it be creepy if we looked outside and no cars were there?" Well, sure enough, no cars were there. So now we think there's someone in the house. He goes and gets his dad's gun. Looks through the house, no one there. I'm officially freaking out. We went down to the 1st floor, and here's where shit gets weird. They have one of those alarm systems that announces when someone is opening the door. It's connected to the whole 1st floor. So again, there's clearly no one there. And the alarm starts going off. Dining room motion detected. Living room motion detected. Kitchen motion detected. I said, "Nope, get me out." So he took me to our friend's house, and he went back over with our friend just to make sure no one was in there. At this time, my husband's family is back. Husband starts to explain that we hear footsteps, and his stepbrother said, "Oh, was it the little girl?" He hadn't mentioned that we thought it was a little girl. He goes on to say that he's seen her before. She's got long black hair and wears a white dress. Husband tells me this. I said, "I'm not going back there literally ever." Naturally, I had to. He was moving out, yay. And we had to help him pack. So I'm in the kitchen, and we're packing up, and I get this overwhelming sense of dread come over me. I can't explain that feeling, but then a thought that was not my own came into my head, and it said, "Don't go upstairs." I told my husband that. He's like, "Why?" And I look down, and there's a long black hair on my arm. Everyone in the family is blonde or bald. There's no way that could have been there. I hope the family that lives there now is very happy with their ghost friend. I will never go there ever again. I have a lifetime of experiences. I should really write them down sometime. Anyway, the first experience I can remember clearly was when I was little. I liked to sleep on the floor of my parents' bedroom because I felt like a hobbit. I woke up late in the morning. I want to say at maybe 11 a.m., and I looked over at the foot of the bed and saw my father's feet. Could hear him snoring away, and the bed shift as he moved around a bit. Me, being the wonderful daughter I was, sat up very quickly and yelled, "Morning, Daddy!" But there was no one in the bed. There was still an indent of a body, but no one in the room. For some reason, my mind was like, go to the basement. And I started sprinting down 2 flights of stairs. When I go to the landing in the basement, I had another moment of panic because I have always hated the basement. It was terrifying to me. So I stood on the stairs, too scared to move, and I started calling for my mother, whose shadow I could see in the basement suite under the door. No answer. I ended up getting all of my courage to spring back to the main floor to find no one was home. Even now, I get kind of uneasy thinking about it. 2 years ago, my cousin passed away. He was my very, very best friend, and for most of my life, he was quite literally the only person who was just like me. I named my children after him. He was just the only one who ever understood me. I was in another state, working as an independent contractor, and I woke up in a complete panic, with my brain screaming his name. I called him, except I was so sleepy and freaked out that I called the home phone at his parents' house, the number I called as a child. He answered, and told me that his father, my uncle, had died 10 minutes before. Then a year later, my cousin died of an overdose. I held his hand and read our favorite book out loud while his brain died. 2 years after that, my then boyfriend got wasted and decided to go for my throat. I was locked into a lease with him, and no women's shelters would let my 17-year-old son stay with me. I started sleeping on the couch, and my boyfriend would wake me up several times a night to start fights with me. He physically attacked me 4 more times. The night of the last attack, I was sitting on the couch, and he walked out of the bedroom, started towards me, and staggered backwards. He ran to me, almost in tears, terrified. He swore that a man-shaped, flat black figure walked out of the living room where I was sitting and stepped directly in front of him. That night, I dreamed that my cousin was standing in front of me, and he said, "He won't touch you again. I got you, cuz." And then he grinned. My ex moved out a week later, and he never did try to touch me again. Thanks, Emeth. I love you too. Multiple in my home. I've seen a ghost woman floating in front of my door with open arms, welcoming feeling, but I said, I'm too tired for this shit, rolled over and then fell asleep. I was in the kitchen home alone, dog beside me. Door across the room slowly opens and I could hear the knob turning, then it slammed shut. I was in the bathroom doing the do, stared into space and I kind of gazed at the dryer. The dryer door slowly swung open. In the kitchen again. Little sister is the only one home. Dog's next to me again. I saw my sister go into the bathroom. Food is done, so I call her to come eat. Then I hear her in the room behind the kitchen wall. I ask if she went to the bathroom and she says no. Random flashes of light, like a camera flash, but 2 times really fast. In the corner of my room, no one in the backyard, no one in the hallway. The TV did flash, one in the living room, but not like a camera. Me and another student stayed after school to finish building a trebuchet for competition. We were working with the 2x4 wood pieces and put a piece about 4 feet long on a table above us while we drilled through another one on the floor. He's holding it down, and I'm drilling through when suddenly the piece on the table flies over our heads and lands opposite of us. Freakiest shit ever. Stood up immediately, figured someone threw it, but there was no one there. It also didn't fall off the table, otherwise it would have hit us directly. Went and told the teacher, which was in a separate room, immediately packed our stuff and took off. So this one is lame, but here goes. My upstairs toilet has this problem where after about 5 or so flushes, the nut holding the lever to the side of the tank loosens and falls off, so the lever just dangles there. After every flush, you can feel it loosen a little because the plastic nut is old and worn out. One day, I decide to fix it. Bought the stuff, got set up, and then realized I'd gotten the wrong thing. Our toilet is older, so it needed a different kind of lever assembly. I put the old one back together and went to the bed. Starting that night and the following morning, and for the next 6 months, you could still feel it loosen with every flush, but after 4 or 5 times it would be tight again. Never came off in all those months. Finally, I got curious and opened the tank to look inside. Everything was normal. I didn't touch anything. Put the top of the tank back on. After that, it started coming off again. Important detail. The house I live in is with my wife. Her grandparents used to live there. Her grandfather died in the downstairs bedroom. He liked to fix stuff. He also liked coffee. Then the wife frequently smells coffee in the morning and has for years, even when there wasn't a coffee maker in the house. Our dog also frequently interacts with someone who isn't there. Like he looks up and wags his tail and stirs around like when a dog is asking for attention. Grandpa loved dogs. I think I speak for all of us when I say this type of paranormal activity is the type of ghost we can all get behind. Thanks for the help. One night, I was sitting on my living room playing some LOL. It was pretty late, and I was near a huge window that goes straight to the street. I used to live in quite a dangerous zone. Anyone who walked across the street could see me sitting right there by the light of my PC. Well, I started to feel like someone was staring at me and immediately felt incredibly uneasy. I looked outside and no one was there. Then I felt a tap on my shoulder. I was leaning against the wall, so it made me jump. Then I heard a whisper. Rauper, go to sleep. So, yep, I pretty much obeyed this mysterious voice and went straight to my room. Some minutes later, a junkie got shot right in front of my house, right by the window. First story. When I was a child, I had a ghost friend in the attic of my house. How did I know this? My older teenage sister bought a Ouija board, here we go again, and we tried to use it to commune with ghosts. We ended up contacting the ghost of a dead 4-year-old boy named Awa, who lived in Hawaii. My sister thought it was bullshit, and I was making it up, until we looked up the name and learned it was the name of a flower native to Hawaii. How could I, a 7-year-old, know that? She stopped using it, but I kept talking to him until we moved. No ghosts in our new house, unfortunately. Second story, a few years back, but a few years after story 1. I woke up randomly at 2 a.m., figuring it was just some kind of insomnia. I stayed up on my computer for about an hour before going to sleep. In the morning, we get a call from my aunt saying my grandfather had died. After the funeral, my cousin asked me if I woke up around 3 a.m. the night he died. Turned out, so did she. And so did every other cousin of mine and grandchild of his. Though I kind of felt happy that he decided to visit me first, since I had woken up earliest. Rest in peace, Pop. So Lila, should we ever use a Ouija board?
No.
Good. When I was 8, my family and I moved into a house in upstate New York that was built in the 1800s. It was a fixer-upper, so for the first few months we all slept in the living room on an air mattresses while we got our bedrooms in order. I could never go to sleep, and I kept telling my parents that a man was standing in the room staring at me. He was kinda overweight, wearing clothes that didn't seem to fit the time period, and he was bald with big glasses. My parents were weirded out and assured me nothing was actually there, though I continued waking them up for weeks, telling them that the man wouldn't stop looking at me. Eventually, I stopped seeing the man. Years later, my parents told me they had talked to the neighbor and told him what I was seeing. The neighbor was shocked and told my parents I perfectly described the man whose family had lived in that house for generations. My cousin and I were about 12 years old and huge Guitar Hero fans. We went on vacation to this lake house near Petoskey, Michigan, and we ended up learning that the house was previously a nursing home, which we thought nothing of. One day, we were playing Guitar Hero, and the TV shut off by itself. We shrugged, turned it back on, and kept playing. About 10 minutes later, the TV and the Xbox both shut off simultaneously. We look at each other and both have that "this is effing weird" look on our faces. We take about a 3-hour break and leave the house, then come back to find the guitar in a completely different room where the Xbox and the TV weren't. We shit ourselves accordingly, considering that our parents had been gone on a day trip with our siblings, and it was just the two of us in the house that entire day. We played outside until our parents got back. My boyfriend and I live in an older house with our 2 cats, a Russian blue, Gypsy, and a tuxedo cat, Dexter. On multiple occasions, we have both thought we saw one of our cats and went over to pet them, only to find out they weren't actually there, but we usually dismiss it as our mind playing tricks on us. No big deal. Well, one day, my boyfriend was in the kitchen and I was in the living room when I saw something fuzzy, small black blur, chase after our Russian blue through the kitchen into the living room. At first I thought it was Dexter, our tuxedo cat, but he was just chilling by the living room window. My boyfriend must have thought it was Dexter as well because he playfully yelled at Dexter for chasing Gypsy. I had to inform him that Dexter had been sitting in the living room the whole time. We have a spare bedroom upstairs, and my boyfriend's sister and brother-in-law were supposed to stay with us during the winter holiday, but halfway through their stay, they decided to stay with his other sister, even though his sister's sister didn't have a spare bedroom or the room. Later, we asked why they decided to stay elsewhere, and they informed us it was because they couldn't sleep with the constant meowing at their door. But our cats sleep with us downstairs. We have quite a few stories like this as well. Anyway, we have a ghost cat. We named her Frida. She gets into all kinds of shenanigans.